This is Ken. We're at the Smart Energy Summit, Parks Associates Smart Energy Summit. We're with Jeff Wilson of NETGEAR. Jeff, this is the first time I've seen NETGEAR at this conference, I think. And so tell us, a little bit about NETGEAR's initiatives in the smart energy and smart home.
Well, I think where we've started with smart energy is really probably more on the service provider business unit. We sell a lot to service providers. Used to be all about home routers. The service providers would add those, but we're getting more and more into additional services that they sell. So home security products and energy management is a natural fit for us as we see these products coming together, because our expertise is about connecting products in the home to the internet and other RF networks.
So that's interesting. Your channel for these kinds of products, you're focusing on the service providers themselves. And when you say service providers, do you mean like telecom providers?
Telecom providers, cable providers, ADT is another service provider. So classes of service providers are going to change. I think what we see is more and more of these types of applications are going to the cloud. So energy management, now regardless of who you define as a service provider, is going to be a service-related product. So a utility is either going to need to get into that service model to provide energy management services or partner with someone who is.
And so from your perspective, you're looking at selling the hardware piece. How far into the solution do you go? I mean, are you providing some of those cloud back-end services, or are you partnering with others?
We're partnering with others. Our focus is to provide the tools to connect easily within the home. I think what we've seen, particularly in some of the early security deployments, is that being able to actually get devices where you want them in the home is challenging. So having the best Wi-Fi to get there, being able to have solutions that integrate Wi-Fi with power line technology, so home plug, or just other ways to connect devices in the home is really, it's our sweet spot. It's what we do well.
And it makes sense. I mean, you've already got the devices. I suppose now what you're talking about in many cases just software additions, right? Yeah.
It is that, and combining some of the different products, the radios that talk different. So we have a gateway that has Wi-Fi, but it also has Zigbee. We have a Z-Wave version. We're kind of agnostic to the protocol, but we're very much focused on finding ways to make it cost-effective and easy to install those technologies.
In that regard, are you seeing any trends, like, is one kind of winning out over the others, or is it too early?
It's it's interesting because NETGEAR is a very global company.
Yeah.
So here in the U.S., we see a lot of emphasis on Z-Wave, probably because I think there's just more devices and devices that work with Z-Wave, and they got a little earlier start. In Europe and Asia, we hear a lot more about Zigbee, and we've also heard a lot of interest recently in the technology from DECT ultra-low energy as another way to get there. It's slightly different.
This is the DECT technology for phones, is that right?
It is. Yeah, it is. It really becomes interesting because it has its own spectrum, unlike Zigbee or Z-Wave, which use, it also it's low power.
Yeah.
They produce tens of millions of chips a year, so very low cost. So we don't have any stance that says it's better than anything else, but it's certainly a technology that's interesting. That combined with the fact that it isn't a mesh network, but it has a long range, up to 1,500 feet in open air, makes it interesting to look at.
Yeah, so again, it could have applications it might fill applications that other technologies couldn't.
Yeah, and it's going to fit better with certain service providers. So if you're a telco in the U.S. or Europe, you might very well want to support DECT phones. You've already got the chipset embedded in that gateway. It might be a great way to connect to other devices.
Well, and so from a retail perspective, do you envision a lot of this being at the store, but maybe telecom brand certified or something like that, kind of like with the DOCSIS initiatives and things like that, or how do you see this being rolled out?
Well, I think initially we see it being essentially more of a professionally installed, moving to self-installed, and I think as the methodology for creating systems improves, then we'll see it move into retail, and hopefully in the next 12 to 18 months.
So, wow, that's a pretty aggressive time schedule. I mean, so we're pretty close here. Huh?
Well, I think the I think the service providers have increase their emphasis on their retail stores, whether it's their specific e-tail versions or retail, or expanding to the Best Buys of the world with a Comcast or Time Warner or AT&T approved device.
And I guess the other aspect of this too is the customer education, customer awareness of this sort of thing. Do you see that getting to the point where it really becomes a retail ready type of device?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, if you were to look at, say, the ADT or Comcast Xfinity Home, the connected home, Time Warner, AT&T, Verizon, there's a tremendous amount of energy and increasing awareness. A lot of it's focused on, today it's focused a lot on home security and convenience and monitoring. Mm-hmm. And I really think that you're going to see a combination of energy management services being deployed there. I think it's really valuable to combine those rather than to think of it as just an energy management system.
Yeah, and that seems to be kind of a recurring theme from the speakers we've had thus far. So, Jeff, I really appreciate your time and good luck in your endeavors.
Well, thank you. Great to meet you.
Likewise.